going.
Live. No, not quite yet.
Okay.
All right, now it's going.
Oh,
Get that going.
put that down.
Hello, everyone. We had a technical glitch, and it appears as if we lost some people on the last stream. The one that we scheduled. Anyways, this is Gary's Guitars Live. Do I have to do everything here? This is Gary's Guitars Live. It's on YouTube right now.
What you're doing?
I'm trying my hard to work over here. Talk to the people.
Are we on Facebook too?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Talk to people.
It's May 19th, 2021. We're here for our weekly chat about guitars and related things like this. Let's see if you can. Anybody remember that name? Philip Kubicki.
That's asking a lot.
This is his probably most famous invention, the Factor bass. This is a prototype. You can probably tell it's pretty rough looking. It's a prototype.
There we go.
Hasn't been used in 20 years, I was told.
Oh, it's been used. Yeah, he played it.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Oh, maybe he got it 20 years ago.
Yeah, we got it about 20 years ago from Philip. But so our friend George, who's the owner of this bass, he hurt his shoulder. He's an upright player, and he started playing this live. And I was like, that looks like a Kubicki bass. And he goes, and he tells me the story, which it is. And not only that, it's one of the first ones ever made. It hung on his wall in his office. And George worked for Fender. Every time he went into Philip's office, Philip used to work for Fender. And every time they saw each other, he would, kind of jokingly offer him $50 for it or something. And that was a joke for years. And then one day he comes home and there's a box on his porch, and that's in it. He just gave it to him. So that is the
speaking of multi-laminate necks.
But yes,
that's about 80 laminates.
It's so laminated that it doesn't even look laminated. It looks like grain.
Yeah, almost.
Talk about it for a minute. Since
Sure.
We got it in the store because George needed the jack changed out, and we did that. And it needed a little bit of, it needs some strings. Has probably Philip put the strings on himself, and he's been passed away for quite some time now.
Unique bridge, as you can see, fine tuners, headless.
He invented, so Ned Steinberger invented the headless, but Kubicki invented the headless that could use regular strings.
Right.
And that's that contraption down on the bridge that now Ned Steinberger has kind of made something like it that is not in violation of the copyright, but is in fact
first
also a
detuner I know of.
Yeah, I think he invented that too.
Extra fret
I think
up
it's
there.
Tightened up there though. You got to use an Allen wrench to take it off. So it has two extra frets, so it goes down to D. So that's pretty cool.
Well, it's an extra fret in a saddle.
Yeah. So, well, this is a fret. The nut is a fret, right? So it's two extra frets.
Well, yeah,
I'm not crazy.
So interesting piece. And just to finish the Phil Kubicki story, about 5 years ago, somebody brought in a Factor bass for me to work on. You just picked it up. It was missing something. Maybe one of the fine tuner knobs.
Mm-hmm.
I said, oh boy, get Factor parts. Good luck. So no. Phil Kubicki retired and he lives in New Hampshire now.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he
does. Yeah, he lived like from Newport or someplace. Here's his phone number.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey Phil, this is Gary at Gary's Guitars. Hey, how you doing? He's a great guy. I told him we need some parts. Oh yeah, I think I got some. Yeah, no charge. I'll just send them off to you.
Yeah.
We chatted about guitars. I told him I was working on one of his old basses. He's the one where who a quote I've used a few times. He said, so did you oil the fingerboard? I said, oh yeah, I put it on, let it sit for a while and wipe it. Don't wipe it off. It takes 2 days. Leave it there. Let it soak in. Oh, okay, Phil. I'll let it soak in. And then sadly, a couple of years later, he passed away.
Yeah, he passed away. And the story behind this bass as well is I think he was sick. He knew he was passing away, and that's why he had time to give that to George.
Right.
And it's George has used it. He uses it as an electric upright. It has those tape, not tape wound, but the nylon strings. It gets an upright sound.
Right.
So, like I said, I did see him use it playing out.
I knew,
And-
well, I first knew Kubicki's name from the 80s.
Yeah.
Before the Factor bass, he was marketing mostly Fender Tele Strat bodies and necks that were, before Warmouth, they were probably the best.
Oh yeah, definitely.
If you wanted an aftermarket neck that was a little different, maybe a little wider, different radius, he made them,
Yeah.
and they were great quality. So people around were, building Kubicki Strats. It was a thing for a while. So, highly regarded man in the guitar world.
Yeah, so that's a cute, cool little rarity. So what we're gonna do actually now, this is YouTube. We're gonna try to invite some Facebook viewers on too, but we want you to know we like the YouTube viewers the best, because we're.
Do you mean we like them better when they view us on YouTube as opposed to Facebook?
Oh, they want the. See now they're. Oops! Oh, there's that. Oh no! Rotate your device. You keep talking.
Okay. Oh, I see. I'm still there.
Yeah. We got. So this is why we only do YouTube, because it's easier.
Yeah.
Finish that.
Well, anyways, Mark and I have been discussing a few topics for today. We came up with string gauges and sizes, talking about paint on guitars, types of paint,
Yeah.
types of strings, sizes of
Yeah, I got some. I got some. Where did my notes go? Anyways, so now we're also on YouTube. This is our weekly. We're also on Facebook. This is our weekly YouTube show that can also be seen on Facebook if you're tuning in. We do a little chat thing where people can ask questions. So, but we do that primarily on YouTube. We're just here on Facebook to say hi to Facebook friends, but we're not trying to make this a habit.
Okay.
Anyways, because this is a complicated setup we have now.
It is getting complicated.
Yeah.
You need a gaffer and
Yeah,
cameraman. And
well, so I guess Facebook insists on having the upright format, which is a little inconvenient too.
I see. One monitor is vertical and the other is
horizontal. I know. So
horizontal.
we're not. I'm a horizontal dude. And so,
landscape over.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Oh boy. So we're here to answer your questions about guitars, guitar related things. Just leave a message in the comments, and we'll address it. As far as the Facebook viewers, just if you could go over to YouTube and join the conversation there, that would be easier. Or we'll also try to get you in too if you have any questions.
And but we have Evan. This is maybe our 10th one.
Could be something like that.
They're on YouTube. If
you can go
want to go check them out.
Watch the old ones if you like this format. It's a casual format,
And send us questions.
Yeah, send us questions anytime. Just because we need material. We do prepare a little. We'll start with your topic today. Paint. Yes. Oh, this is a good one.
I mentioned a couple weeks ago, for the first time ever, instead of just consulting, I started reading Dan Earlywine's guitar repair book, because there's lots of information that I'd never read before, because I just was looking for specific ideas and tips. And I just finished a couple of chapters on painting guitars and refinishing guitars and repairing paint, and got me thinking about the whole history of guitars and paint. I mean, why are they painted? Why can't a guitar be bare wood?
Yeah.
So I'm not quite sure where to start, but guitars always have been painted, probably because violins and cellos have always been, well, not painted, but they were
lacquered,
shellacked or varnished or whatever. So it's, even though tonally and other ways, bare wood guitar might be the best, but you need something on it to protect the guitar. Without paint, it'll get really dirty. I can imagine that wood grease and grime will get into the grain of the wood and then might kill your good tone. And then, so yeah, they pretty much have to be painted, I guess.
Yeah, so we have there's a lot of low luster finishes coming out, very popular right now. What they call live grain, which is the open grain actually kind of pops out of the finish. That's because nowadays they have these robots painting guitars, like robots paint cars, and they can put on a perfect thin coat. They use lasers to read everything. So they do put thinner coats of paint on guitars lately, but you've got to make sure it's encased. Because of, but also there's tonal attributes to finishing your instrument. One respect, you're kind of you're literally dampening it,
Right.
but another, you're allowing it you're channeling the way that everything vibrates.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, in my reading, which is partly historical, guitars were initially like violins, shellacked or varnished till the 30s when lacquer type paints and the ability to spray became a thing. Before that, they were rubbed on. French polishing is a famous thing that takes weeks to put on by rubbing and rubbing until you make that dull thing shine. And then in the 30s, lacquers and nitrocellulose lacquer in particular was invented, but wasn't commonly used on guitars until the 50s, until the late 60s. So thus the nitrocellulose lacquer era. All the major manufacturers in the United States, at least, were using it. The drawbacks to it were that it's fragile, it flakes, it wears out fairly quickly. The advantages are that it's organic. It's made from organic materials. There's no plastic or synthetic materials in it. So it breathes, is the word. So traditionally, the best sounding guitars have nitrocellulose lacquer on it. Then acrylic lacquers came out I think they came out earlier, but they became used in the guitar world in the late 60s.
Okay, so I guess.
Probably to meet the high demand for guitars. Like Leo said, 5,000 guitars in 64 and 100,000 ordered in 1965. So they couldn't paint them fast enough. So they started modern ways, quicker ways of painting, finishes that dry quicker like acrylic lacquer. They're harder, they hold up better. They act similar to nitrocellulose, but they don't breathe as well, I guess is what a paint guy would say. And that was common they're still all in use.
Yeah.
But the common paint now is poly paint, polyurethane, polyester, whatever. Totally synthetic. It looks great. It lasts forever. I remember for the first time in the late 80s, somebody brought in a guitar. They're he wanted to refinish it. And Chris Pern had refinished some guitars, so it's okay, yeah. Put paint stripper on it, let it sit for a few days, took it off. Guitar looked brand new. All it did was take all the dirt off. So he ended up with a hammer and a chisel.
Oh yeah, that was
banging off chunks of it. I mean, chunks come flying off.
And that's the epoxy based finish, was it?
Yeah. It took him a long time to get it stripped so he could refinish it. And then he said he'd never do that again.
Yeah.
And that's the modern finish, which is durable.
Yeah, super durable.
Great.
Kind of the apex of that is the made in Mexico fenders from the late 90s, early 2000s. I think that's probably what Chris encountered there. Was like that's super thick, one coat of finish basically. With the epoxy finishes, you can put them on really thick, and they're self-leveling.
Right.
So
I remember seeing pictures in I think the Gibson factory. They had the paint dipping.
Yeah,
that it's this huge thing, and guitars go over and they get dipped in, pulled out, next. And they're perfect, every one, close. So anyways, that's a brief history of painting.
We got a couple paint-related questions.
Oh, good.
Do any famous artists paint guitars still? But painting the outside, painting over the guitar. So there's a guy who paints a lot of Godin guitars because Jonathan Blakesley owns one. So I think he's a Vermonter who, or he could be living in Quebec, but he's in the area.
Yeah.
And he used to work for Godin.
Oh.
And so he got to doing his art on Godin guitars and kind of marketed them as a thing. Yeah.
Huh. Well, I didn't know any famous artists did
Yeah.
painting guitars, but certainly many people
People
have painted
became
guitars.
famous for painting guitars. And then Roberto Fordo wants to know what is the whole relic guitar thing? Here's a topic: relic guitars.
You'll have to explain this one because I never got it.
Well, hand me the Kubicki bass.
An organically relic.
Yes.
So this was
So this
manufactured
bass-
relic.
So this is very little finish on it, anyways, and the finishes come off, and see. So you'll see here, there's dings. So everywhere you have a ding, you have a break in the finish. There's a lot of oil from hands and just everything kind of in it. And it does a thing. It helps the instrument kind of sell. When you pick up an old guitar, that's kind of part of like the feeling you have is the neck being super smooth from being oiled by a hand constantly. So the oil from your thumb constantly running and taking the finish off in a certain way. So that's part of what makes vintage guitars desirable is the fact they're worn and they're just worn in. They're comfortable to play. And so the relic thing came around. It's like, let's make guitars more comfortable to play by making them feel like they're old. And some people relic well and some people don't. But I know that the original Nash guitars, of which Woody has one, Joe King played them before he started making his own. Who else? My friend Charlie Kickham has one. They do. When you're playing it, you feel like you're playing an old guitar, and that just does something.
Oh, so it was originally intended to make it more playable, not to look old.
Well, to look to make it feel like you're holding one of the great guitars.
Oh, okay.
So some of it was wearing away bits that would be worn away on the neck. So just simulate that neck that's been played forever. And then it gets ridiculous where people have guitars that are dragged around parking lots.
Well, some companies do light, medium, and heavy.
Yeah, exactly. What kind of relic do you want? The companies are getting better. People are getting worse at it. And let's not get too sidetracked with that. But
we did talk about it
relic,
in the previous
it's a thing.
video.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, but it's a thing. I can dig it. I have I have experience enough guitars that have been relic to go like I can understand why. It just takes that like. There's a stigma of a new guitar that is not as cool as the vintage guitar. And it kind of, if a guitar feels vintage when you hold it, you just kind of get a little, what's the word? There's a psychological term for this. Whoops, it's not going to come to me. But like the feeling that you have something better than actually, the good feeling you get from having something that other people don't have. An advantage, some kind of psychological advantage you get from having something that feels
superiority.
Well, unique too. Yeah.
I've noticed. Actually, I hadn't thought about it, but people seem to have stopped asking for relic guitars. I can't remember the last time a customer said, "Oh, do they make that Kelly in a relic version?"
Yeah.
When we get one, they go, "Oh, that's cool. That's relic."
But yeah.
Seems like the heyday might be over a bit.
Well, there was a big people were like, "This is cool," and maybe that was 10 years ago. When
even Johnson guitars for $99
were coming relic. Yeah.
Mostly
in the electric world, the acoustic world, not as much. Right. Acoustic players like their guitars to be a little nicer.
It's a thing.
We had one that came and went real fast. So Fender's gotten good at making and selling relics of their own instruments, so that's cool. And yeah, it's just a vibey thing more than does it sound any better? No. And if we're talking about like decimals of a percent that it could improve, something.
Right.
So it's a feel thing.
I remember a customer brought in. They had just bought a brand new relic Paisley Telly, and he got the heavy relic, which meant that most of the Paisley was gone.
Yeah, right. Well, it's the
was
Jimmy
this a
Page
Paisley Telly?
Yeah, you should see there's a Jimmy Page signature model. Look it up. Not right now. Don't go anywhere. But look up the Jimmy Page signature model because it is heavily relic. I think there's some Paisley involved as well. And then someone asked, is that an ES-150 behind you? No, it isn't. That For those watching on YouTube, you can see it. For those watching on Facebook, I'm pointing at nothing. But that's the Cortez. It's a 1970s made in Japan Gibson copy of a 175.
Oh, you might be talking about the Guild.
The Guild is a Guild.
Yeah.
Um,
A T100.
T100, which is mistaken for the Starfire because it has the Starfire logo on the pickguard.
The Slim Jim.
Slim Jim. And there's a Gibson next to it. That's that Gibson. And unfortunately, Facebook has. So we're also running Facebook at the same time. For those of you who haven't caught that, Facebook makes us do portrait mode, so they don't. You're just not seeing everything.
Like half of Mark.
Yeah, exactly. There's that too. Yeah, which is fine. There's enough of me to go around. There we go. Back to finishes. If we have and William Morgan also commented, I don't get the new relic guitar thing. You know, my 1978 Les Paul still looks new except for some buckle rash on the back. You know, so yeah, an old guitar doesn't have to look like crap.
No.
That you can have an old guitar be in great condition. I mean, there are some wear things that happen. That kind of, especially neck wear, fingerboard wear, especially, which are kind of cool.
Reminds me of the couple of people I said to about their mint condition 58 Strat. Oh, what's wrong with it? Nothing. It's in mint condition. How could it be? Nobody played it?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
Someone bought it and put it away. Yeah.
If it was any good, it would have got played somewhere in the last 50 years.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's in mint condition. That's good, but it might be a dog. Good to piss off vintage guitar owners.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, boy. There, especially pre-CBS Fender owners are never picky about those kind of things. They've become a thing, a crowd. So here's my intro topic here for the day. One of the things that I don't know if it burns me or irks me, but it's something I feel a need to explain. I actually did it in a different YouTube video on YouTube. But here's the thing: string gauges. So the way I like to explain that is this way. String gauges are misnamed, and there's no standards really. Different companies make different gauges. They call them different things. So one person's extra light is one person's regular light. One person's regular light, they kind of fits a pattern, but here's the pattern. Light gauge strings in acoustic guitar are normal. They should just write normal on the package. Manufacturers make their guitars for 12s, essentially. Yeah, 12s. They recommend 10s, them, 9s. Yeah, but they say on the guitar, especially Seagull and Martin both say, use 12s. Right. Now 13s on acoustic used to be called medium, but they're less and less used now because medium strings pull guitars apart. That little extra pressure on the guitar. If you don't have a really solid guitar, if you have a marginal guitar, do not use mediums. Yeah.
Well, there used to be heavies, but
yeah, there used to be even heavy, and so now, and in acoustic, there's no heavy. It's just like medium is the heaviest it gets. Right. Well, why is it medium? Medium sounds. If you say, "Would you like light or medium strings?" They're like,
"Oh, medium."
Medium.
That's a regular one.
Sounds normal. Yeah, right. Yeah.
I don't want to play light strings.
Yeah, light strings. That's for.
Well, that's what your guitar came with.
Yeah. So that's an important thing. Lights are normal. It's okay in the acoustic. In the electric world, mediums are the normal. That's a 10. That's in the middle. It's really a medium. 11's a little heavier, 9's a little lighter. They're all kind of in that middle. So it's difficult to explain that, so I wanted to talk about that. And then 9, the other 10, thing. 11,
12. Well, I can think of 6 common, not common, but 6 everyday gauges for electric, but only 4 for acoustic.
Yeah.
So the electric players have a much greater.
They go 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Choice.
Yeah.
And
there's 9.5.
Those too. Right.
Anyways, but the big point I want to talk about that is also I want to talk about the classical strings, normal tension and hard tension. What I often tell people, because normal tension, give me the normal one.
Right.
I don't want to hurt my guitar, or I don't want, you know. But on classical guitars, we're talking about a lot less string tension. And if you're someone who primarily plays steel string guitar, like myself, hard tension is cool. It you know, they're not as floppy in your hands, and that you're the claw that you use to finger pick on your flat top dreadnought is gonna really knock around those normal tension strings. Hard tension is not that much harder.
No.
And it should be kind of a different normal also.
Yeah.
But the name hard tension makes it sound like heavy, like, oh, this is gonna make it hard to play your guitar because the tension's hard. So that's my two little string.
Yeah, for classicals, when people ask because they don't know, I basically boiled it down to, if you're just beginning, start with normal tension. They're a little easier to play. But once you've built up your calluses and you're comfortable with that, go right to hard tension, because they'll sound much better.
Yeah, there's no classical players who probably use normal tension strings. They all use the hard tension.
I don't know how many
serious player.
Yamaha, Alvarez classicals have come in over the years. Put hard tension on them, they sound pretty good.
Yeah.
So
here's a good little topic that came in the chat. Samick guitars, can you talk about them? The answer is yes, we can, and it's fun. So let's do that.
Was I the first Samick dealer around here?
Ever? Yeah, yeah. For Samick branded guitars, probably. Samick guitars Samick is a South Korean company, or it's a brand of a South Korean company. Is it Young Chan? I don't remember the company. Anyways, Korea has two, maybe three, but probably two music manufacturing companies. They are, that do all this, Korean manufacturing for everyone, including the Takaminis, the Fenders that were Korean made. Samick is a powerhouse music manufacturer.
I'm tempted to say there was a point where they made more guitars than anybody else in the world.
Yeah, because they made the original Epiphones, the great main Korea Epiphones. Those are Samick made.
Yeah.
The Samick makes pianos, violins. They make all sorts. They're like Yamaha. They're the Korean Yamaha.
Right.
That's a good way to think of it.
Yeah. A salesman came in the door one day and showed me Samick guitars. They were really cheap at the time. I think they sold for just over $100, and just your basic Asian copies of American classics. But they were well done.
Mm-hmm.
So he talked me into trying a few, and people liked them. And then their story just grew bigger and bigger. Oh, these are made by Samick. Oh, Samick makes Court, or Samick makes that.
Yeah.
Just all these stores. They were just this huge place. You go there with your $100,000, and they'll make you 5,000 guitars or 1,000 guitars or whatever. And big companies like Epiphone and others were going there because they could get it done there well and cheaper.
Yeah, and then they got really good at making them. We had a Samick archtop that was as good as anything. Well, as good as half the Gibsons as you'll find.
By the late 90s, their quality was fine.
And one of my only contemporary guitars, I guess, my non-vintage guitars I own is a Samick made Epiphone that I just hit a B chord on, and I went, that's the beginning of Jumpin' Jack Flash. I gotta own this thing. I just went boom, and it just like all these overtones come, like, oh boy, I gotta have this thing. So I did.
But there are no more Samick made guitars.
Samick as a brand is not made now. Yeah.
When that stopped, maybe early 2000s.
Luthier for Samick. What does that mean, John? John put, can you talk about them? And then you said luthier for Samick. Not sure that means, are you a luthier for Samick? Is that what you're saying? In that case, tell us about Samick guitars. Yeah. Greg Bennett. Yeah. Greg Bennett worked with Samick or for Samick.
Designed
and then he had his own brand.
It was the high-end Samick at the time, their first signature, although he's not a famous player, but he, the Greg Bennetts were good. They were basses, guitars, step up.
Yeah.
Probably the first time the Asian guitar quality in general took a step up was with Samick.
Well, I mean, the
Not
first
the
step
same
was the Japanese guitar, so probably mainland
Well,
Asia.
yeah,
we call them,
yeah. I mean, the other Asian countries who built really terrible guitars for quite a while.
yeah. Yeah.
And
And
some of
Samick was the first Korean company to start turning heads on guitars. I often compare this to the car world because it's an easy comparison to make, which
Right.
is at one time only Americans could make good cars, and then the Japanese were making.
What about the Italians? The
Exactly.
Germans.
At one time, only Americans could make great cars, and we call that 1950 whatever.
Okay.
And then you have the weird European versions, just like in guitars. You had the Hagstroms and such that were impressive. Hagstrom is the Mercedes of they were impressive, but still like not American cars with luxury built. The Japanese made kind of jokey cars for a little while, and then they were no joke real fast. And in the early 70s, they made better guitars than the Americans did, just like Ibanez started making better guitars than Gibson. And then you had that time in the late 80s, early 90s when you're like, Kia, a Korean-made car, that's crazy. Or who was the first? I think you had one, that company that made the first Korean car. What was your Korean car from you before Kia? Was it Kia?
No, that was the first. We had a Kia.
You had a Kia,
2004.
but that was when they got serious.
Yeah, they were fine then.
Yeah, but initially they were like
I had a Fiat that was crap.
Oh, okay. Well, don't get started on that. That's a car.
Not
that's
all
car
Italian
talk.
guitars
That's
cars are great.
Yeah. So in the European stuff, great looking, great playing, Anyways, so as we go, so then Japanese could make cars, but Koreans couldn't. Now Koreans are making cars that rival the Japanese cars, which rival the American cars, which rival the European cars. They just made it into the manufacturing hall of fame. And now the Chinese are making great guitars and trying to make great cars, and they might.
Probably will.
And in India, they're making cars. There's Indian-made cars that will be imported to the U.S. and India's starting to make guitars too. So there's something about the ability to manufacture something that has to be really good. It's a club you join, I think, and so that's. John Tolan asks, no more Samick company now? Well, Samick was kind of like a brand or a subdivision. So, and I think it was Young Chang. If that rings a bell, you could Google
Young
it.
Chang
if you had
pianos.
Yeah, there were.
Somebody like that.
But there was one of those companies that was the parent company, and they do still make stuff. And a lot of guitar hardware is made in Korea. I'd say most of it.
Yes, right.
They're the hardware capital of the world for guitars.
The everyday stuff.
Tuners. They make the Fender tuners. I bet if you buy a custom shop Fender, it's got Korean
hardware, right? Yeah.
And that was a big deal when we became the Hofner dealer. It was like, well, these are made in China, but what about the mid-range? Well, those are made in China too, but they have Korean hardware. And the Korean hardware is the same hardware on the German instruments. And and it is true, it's better hardware on the but so yeah, they probably still exist.
I wonder if I always forget this brand name, but you always remember it. What was the inexpensive line that I had for a while? Then Fender.
Oh, not Axel, S101.
S101. I wonder if the same thing. A Chinese company, it was a factory that made the first good Chinese guitars I knew of, the electrics at least, and was starting to build up their name around here and doing fairly well with a great beginner $99 Strat that's okay. And then no, they don't exist anymore. And then I heard, it's because Fender went to China. They wanted to expand their operation there, so they bought the S101 factory because it was a good factory.
Yeah,
and had workers who knew how to do a good job.
Right. Yeah.
I wonder if the same thing happened to Samick. If somebody went over there and bought the Samick.
Well, yeah. When we talk about buying a factory too, that's also because the factory, especially when we talk about Chinese manufacturing, I talked to one of our suppliers about this recently. Kind of fascinating to me. So there's a factory, and it doesn't belong to them,
right?
But
rent it.
They rent the factory, and the high-tech equipment in the factory belongs to the American company. So in order to get the machine that cuts the perfect neck every time, that's made in Germany or whatever, or probably made the Chinese version of the made in Germany thing. But anyways, the companies had to set up the factories to have their thing made in that
So you
Chinese
just
factory.
rent the building.
Kind of, and they
basically.
rent but not just the building, the human resources and all that. That's the Chinese company that does that.
Right.
But they're like, okay, we'll make you a guitar, but we need this and that, or they come in and say, we want you to make a guitar that like this, and they're like, first of all, they're like, well, sure, we can do that, and then there's problems. And anyways, these companies that are U.S. companies that do manufacturing in China actually own a lot of. I think it was the one of the Mahi rep, who's her family owns the company.
Oh.
She was like, yeah, we had to buy this $500,000 machine to do the bucket, and we had to buy it. This. So let's catch up on questions here for a second.
Yeah.
What do you think of Gibson stopped the Epiphone Elite and elitist brands?
Gibson stopped the Elite.
Epiphone Elite.
What's the question? Why did they stop it?
Why do you think?
Something to do with marketing and money.
Yeah, it's mostly marketing. When you get to that point, when the Asian-made version, it's kind of like when your joke band becomes more popular than your actual band, you're in trouble. So those guys who started joke band on Halloween, and now everyone wants to watch the Halloween band and doesn't want to see your real band. When your inexpensive instrument challenges your expensive instrument, Fender actually faced that problem. We had one of these guitars. A few have come through. Fender had Fender branded made in China guitars for about a year and a half, and they were great. And they've been replaced actually with the Squire Contemporary series, but they rebranded them as Squire because people were like, it says Fender on it and it's great. I'll take it.
It's $299.
Yeah. And so sometimes when they do it, and it's a really tight marketing thing when you're marketing different lines that do the same thing. And so you get marketing crossover. And so someone decides these things are selling too well. They're cutting into our sales of our more expensive things. So why would you buy a Les Paul Studio when you could buy an Epiphone Les Paul Custom that's really good? And it's a custom. It's, it's got all the Studio is the stripped down model, and the Custom is the all bells and whistles model. So that might be an answer to that.
It's a great mystery to me throughout the world. Cars, everything. Yeah. I don't know how many times I've bought a product. It was great, a tool, and it lasts a few years, and they go back. Oh, yeah, they stopped making that years ago. They make this instead.
Yeah,
and I get that, and it's crap.
Stephen McElroy, that's a familiar sounding name, asked, "What is the hottest guitar now?"
Tellys.
Yeah, Tellys are it's just Strat Telly.
Right. It's
Telly Fender's doing great. They're killing it.
Oh, Gretches. The Gretches?
Gretches are getting a lot of attention too. Gretches owned by Fender now.
They don't sell as fast as Squire Strats because they cost twice as much, but everybody that walks in the door goes, "Ooh, the blue Gretsch.
Yeah,
ooh, that's the So
there's a lot of wow factor on those Gretches, and people, and they honestly, and we this ties in with the Asian manufacturing thing. They're kind of better than the American-made ones. I know that's sacrilege, but some of those old Gretches are wacky. They got bad neck sets.
I worked with guys who were doing repairs in the 60s and 70s and 80s, and Gretches were their least favorite. Not that well constructed. They looked great. They sounded great. If they didn't warp and twist, they played great. But when you had to fix them, it was no fun. It's like, oh, why did they do it that way? The brand thing might be worth mentioning.
Yeah.
For years, if you didn't, almost everybody that walked in the door, Fender Martin Gibson, Fender Martin Gibson, Fender Martin Gibson. That's all they wanted. Well, yeah, but check out this Seagull, or check out this Gretsch, or check out this other one, or this Harmony. It's great. No, it's Fender Martin. That's all they wanted. And now it's like, I don't want my dad's guitar.
Yeah, there's a bit. That's what Taylor's the I don't want my dad's guitar.
Yeah, I've almost stopped downselling Squires because I'm so used to doing it. There's Fenders and then there's Squires.
Yeah,
but now they're fine.
They're really good. They're like, this is good, and it's made by Fender, and this is good, and it's also made by Fender. It just says Squire by Fender.
Right.
and it's a branding thing. And brand is everything now, just in general. It's so, and they do. Fender's really good at getting those quality attributes at the right price points, I think.
Mm.
So the goal of any company is to empty your wallet at all costs and to empty any potential customer's wallet. So if you only have $200 to spend, and people ask, why does Martin sell a $600 Martin?
I got me.
Because some people can only spend $600 on a guitar.
And they want a Martin.
And so you want that customer, you're going to make them the thing. And there's a lot more people who can only spend $600 on a guitar than people who can spend $2,500 on a guitar.
Yeah, well, they haven't gotten good at building $600 guitars
No.
yet.
I suspect they purposely make them flawed so they don't compete with their, fancy guitars.
I think it's Chris Martin's outlet for his experiments with wood alternatives.
A little bit of that too, yeah.
Yeah, let's try it on these Mexican Martins. Try that wood on here and see if it works. And,
Yeah.
But when people come in and you got any used Martins? No, nothing right now. But for $500-$600, we got two brands, Seagull and Teton, that are better than the Martin $600 guitar.
Yeah, in the same price range they do. Like
this is what they do. They build great $600 guitars. Martin doesn't.
Steve Purley's asking, I don't know if you ever get this question, but do you guys have any idea? That's a lot of disclaimers there. Inexpensive reverb pedal.
Holy Grail.
Why they don't exist.
Well,
we talked about this last week, Steve, if you tuned in, because you asked the question before and we actually got to you.
I mean, like, why does Dan Electro make
why is it difficult to make it? Yeah, what? And so the short of it, although it was explored last week, is that they it's done as a delay. The way they make delay is easy to do with a chip. Reverb isn't. When you have a spring reverb or any great reverb, you have infinite amounts of decay in all directions. And to do that with a digital pedal, what they do is they set up a delay to like just fire off in weird patterns that sound like reverb. So there's a splash of the reverb.
Unless you listen really closely and go, that's a delay.
And if you listen closely, you can hear the little repeats in it.
Right.
And they blur it up nicely, but it's digital. But
I see it in all the little amps that have reverb.
Yeah.
It's delay. But it's
really
fast.
And sometimes they call it reverb. Yeah. And so so it's reverberation of some sort. But when we talk about reverb, we talk about spring reverb in the guitar world, or something that sounds really luscious like that. So, having said that,
is the Holy Grail the cheapest?
The Holy Grail is the cheapest good reverb. Yep. Yeah, okay. Because they manage it's also done with delaying action, but they manage to blur it up in a way that's pleasant.
Right.
And they have it's a simple couple settings. We have a Holy Grail over there, I think. They give you a spring setting and a plate setting. And plate reverb is easier to do because it's more like delay in a weird way. Just the way it kind of fires out on the plate. But spring reverb is really tough to do. But processing power has gotten better, and there are better. I actually have an off-brand reverb pedal I really like, and you can't get it, so I won't tell you who makes it. But that's the Reverber.
Not Cameron.
No, not Cam. It's called the Reverber. And there's dozens of them in the world, and I have one of them. But yeah, if you're looking for an inexpensive 129, Holy Grail is the closest you'll get to a good cheap reverb. What is the Strat next to the Telly? People just wanted to go shopping instead. Okay, so we got the blue one you're looking at, probably.
Oh,
that's a Bullet. It's a Squire Bullet. It's just a great color. So I've always gotten the black Squire Bullet because black goes with everything. And then I was like, do we even need Squire Bullets? I kind of like the Austin. Shh! Don't tell Fender I said this. They will kill me. I like the Austin 199 Strat better. It's a lot in the Telly. That's Austin's 199 Telly, pretty good too. And we're talking about dumbing down that cheap guitar to make sure that people don't buy it instead of your good guitar, and that might be a thing. But having said that, the new Effendi series Squires, which is the cheap Squire, they're coming out great too. And this one's a Bullet. Yeah.
Good.
Especially that Jazzmaster. Speaking of the things behind me, that Affinity Jazzmaster is tons of fun. That's an Affinity, the Squire one. Yeah. And the next to it's a Fender. Right. No joke. $239 with a bag.
Well, that's what I remember. I think you told me a few years ago when you were talking to them about becoming a dealer and yada yada, that they were pulling their bootstraps up and everything was coming up in quality.
Yeah.
Prices would go up too, but that no, the Mexican
Yeah,
the Mexican Strats were now the Player Series, and they're better quality, a little more money, and they're slowly boosting the price and the quality of
yeah.
everything. So I guess they finally got around to the
To the
affinities.
well, I think it might be to a point where with CAD cutting and like the manufacturing the way it is difficult. It's more difficult to make a bad guitar than a good guitar, and so they're just making better guitars. The Affinity series, just like this last year,
Hmm.
because it was like Affinity Strat. I mean, that's just not a joke anymore. And the cool thing about the Affinities are thinner. The same thing with the Tellys and everything. That's one way. Every once in a while, you meet someone who loves this Squire Strat, and I want to put all new pickups in it, and I want to do it because I just love the way it feels and plays. And I've come to the conclusion it's because my conclusion is their bodies are just thinner. They make them that way for just to differentiate. It's just a lighter weight, cool body, and the same. So that Jazzmaster, because the Jazzmaster is a huge slab of wood, anyways, and sometimes they can get a little heavy. Having that thin Affinity style body is a cool thing. And it lightens up the whole thing and just gets gets a different kind of resonance, and they accidentally every once in a while, even a broken clock's right twice a day. they so that is a Squire Bullet. That was the answer to the question, in that beautiful robin egg blue kind of, I don't know if that's technically the color. I decided to get a little bold with if I was going to get a bullet, don't get the black bullet, get a cool looking weird color that someone's going to come in and go like, I need that right now.
All this talk of qualities reminded me of Tom from Ventura.
Yeah.
For years, we sold Ventura guitars and ukuleles. They were the best under $200 things. And the man who owned the company, Tom, really nice man, older man in Texas, he would, I think every quarter, he would send us out a report from China. So where his instruments were made. And he'd talk about the labor force over there, what it's like being in China, and yada, yada. It was always interesting. And then on the phone, he was answer anything. So I asked him once about, because I'm sorry, I skipped over. He spent 4 months a year, once a quarter, he'd go over for a month and go to the factory. And I said, oh, that's great. How was it over there? And, how is it working with the Chinese? And he said, that's what you have to do. If you want to maintain a decent quality, you have to go over there about once a quarter and make sure that all the machines are adjusted correctly. Everything is oiled. The computer programs are working. So that's all I do for a month, is we go through every machine in the factory, every program on the computer, and make sure that, because they all drift off, they get changed.
Yeah.
Knives
wear down.
Yeah, a centimeter thing changes in this cutter, and then all your necks are kind of crooked. And he said, the average guy running the machine, he doesn't know that. You need the guy like me who knows to go and check these things. So that's why we have consistently good quality. You just got to go and take care of it. So that was a little story about maintaining quality.
One thing I would like to mention is, once again, we are also doing a simulcast on YouTube, on Facebook Live, but this is kind of a YouTube thing. So if you're watching on Facebook, join us on YouTube, because that's where we get the questions coming in, and that's where we want our audience to land. Just because YouTube is Facebook is a good place to argue with your uncle about politics, but YouTube is the kind of, building our YouTube thing has been about the education, the information side of things. So that's kind of where we like to do that. So there's a little bit of bookkeeping. So we have a question from Karen Traversy.
Oh,
what are you bringing home for dinner? No. What is it? So yes, we've stocked the audience with family members, folks. Now these are just sporadic. This has just happened. Karen's asking, what's the favorite guitar bass you have ever played?
Guitar/bass?
Guitar, yeah.
And/or
probably, yeah.
You want to go first? I can go.
Yeah, you go ahead.
Yeah. I actually owned it. It was a 1958 or 7. I really don't remember. I think it was the second or third year that Guild made guitars,
Mm-hmm.
and I just happened upon a D35, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty beat, but it sounded. It was the best sounding acoustic guitar I had ever heard, and it may still be. Of course, I kept it for a few years, and then I traded it for a fretless bass, which I played for 6 months and hated, and traded for something else.
For a wall pedal.
Yeah, that was the best guitar. I frequently, when everybody asks me, that's the one I think of. Bass, it's the 59P bass that Aiden, who lives around here, owns, and almost traded me for a Les Paul once.
Oh yeah.
And then
Yeah.
every 5 years he comes in just to taunt me and show it to me and ask me if I can set it up and restring it for him and mention, oh, I'm still thinking about getting rid of it.
Maybe.
I've sort of stopped thinking, because I mean, it's been 30 years that he's been holding this in front of me. But that was it's an ungodly good bass.
Yeah.
Those are my two.
Well, Desert Island, here's a kind of like best. I mean, it's tough. Greatest is favorite too. Yeah, that's a tough one. Say my Archtop K electric guitar, just because it has a really great sound. It is, it's a beast. It has an aftermarket de-arming pickup on it. There's no cutaway. It's a big, K from the late 50s, early 60s. Who can tell? But Chris Byrne did a bunch of work planing and refretting it. They originally come with brass frets, which obviously
don't last very long.
No, they don't last very long. They're not hard. They're softer than the string, so it's different, wrong kind of. It's not wrong. Sorry. Anyways, he did stainless steel. I'm not stainless steel, but he did nickel steel frets. And
did he do the bracing?
No, this was the Archtop.
Oh, Archtop, yeah. Right.
And so that's a guitar that I just feel good playing. I don't play it all the time or anything, but it's just when I do, I'm like, oh yeah. And people love the sound. And then the bass, I guess I have to say my Hofner bass. 35 years now I've had that thing. Don't regret it.
92?
Yeah.
No,
86. Yeah. Probably 86 or 87, because I actually had to get a job to afford it. I found the bass first and then got the job later. I bought it from a young Gary Traversy at Guitar Warehouse on Islington Street in Portsmouth.
Did I ever tell you where I got it?
I remember something. I think the guy whose brother...
There were two brothers from Exeter that both played. One played bass, one played guitar. And they were sort of regular customers. I don't know if they ever played in a band. I mean, they just liked to play and loved music and loved to come in and talk about stuff. And one day he walks in with this old Hofner case and decides he wants to get rid of it. I think he traded it for something. And I'm like, oh my God, it's a 62, 3?
It turns out to be 66, I think.
Well, at the time, he probably told me it was.
He probably,
that he had bought it new in 62 or 63. So that's where it came from. And then shortly thereafter, it didn't take long to think about it.
Yeah, no, I just saw it and I just said, that's cool. I got to have it. And I was right. Here's the funny thing. I think this is his brother years ago. I mean, like, this is about 5 years ago. Some guy comes in and says, yeah, my brother had a Hofner bass. And I'm like, wait right here. And I went out and it just happened to be in the store right out front. I'm like, I think this is it.
Wow.
And so I don't know what's happened with them, but I think one of them came through here. Whatever happened to we got a couple. Howdy, fellas. Is Peter Meyer keeping up?
Hi, Peter.
How you doing? Keep up the good info. Well, thanks for chiming in there, Peter. And we should have Peter as a guest. Now, are you vaccinated, Peter? And you want to come up some Wednesday and be our guest? Let us know. Steve is asking, what happened to the old Guild Electric that used to be part of your sign? We still got it.
It's right over there.
It's actually, so we took, Gary, I think you were going to throw out the old sign. I'm like, no, you got to keep that.
Oh, no, I never thought of throwing
it. Okay, so, but you didn't know where to put it. And I was like, what about, and the back of this wall wasn't finished. There was no sheetrock there.
For those of you on YouTube, behind those archtops is where it is.
Yeah. For those of you on Facebook, sorry, it's, can't see it. But I think everyone's left Facebook now, so we won't worry about that. But yes, we got it, and it's still looking like hell. So Gary, so the story is your original sign. You're like, I'll put a guitar on it.
I had the idea that the sign should have a guitar on it. So as I was getting the store opened and ready, there was a pawn shop in town, Gills, that had always had guitars. A great guy. So I went down there, and he had this guild that somebody had. What's that adhesive that foams up and fills?
Like Gorilla Glue kind of thing. Yeah.
But this was way back before.
Oh yeah, right.
There was some sort of construction adhesive.
Yeah.
The neck had broken off. They probably didn't know what they're doing. They put a bunch of this on, put it back together, and it just this big kind of sort of ball of glue. I think he gave it to me.
Yeah.
He was going to throw it away, and I said, "Oh, perfect," because it looked pretty good at the time. So it went right on the sign, and it stayed there outside 24 hours a day for 8.5 years until pretty much the finish was all gone. Strings are long fell off. And then I couldn't part with it. So when I opened this store and we built the shop area, we used it as a wall. It's plywood.
Wall, yeah.
Wall.
So like you keep it. So the original sign still will, if you stop by, we'll show it to you sometime. It's still there. And I wonder we should plug it in and put a meter on the pickup, see if it still works. Wouldn't that be something?
9 years in the rain.
I know, but wouldn't that be
It
something?
might.
If it was potted, maybe
A little deoxit, maybe.
Yeah, it couldn't be worse than a few of the things we've rescued. So
right.
So Peter says yes and yes. So yeah.
Oh, good.
So we'll arrange it. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, give us a call.
So we're closing in on the 7 o'clock hour, which means it's going to be time to go. So thanks to everyone for tuning in and listening. We'll see you here next week. Let's hang out again next week, huh?
Keep those questions coming.
Keep the questions coming, even in the off hours. Put them in the comments now if you're watching this after the fact. Put them in the comments of the preview or something, just to keep us talking about this guitar stuff. And we're still figuring out how to do this, but I think it's fun.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, okay.
It's getting, we've reached a point where like the hour flies by.
Yeah, it's not like, what are we going to talk about?
Oh my God, we've been talking for 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Seems like 10.
And we're not running out of topics yet. Someday we might run out of topics, but it always pops up.
It's pretty endless topics.
Yeah, so, and then we have show and tell time at the beginning too. That's pretty cool. All right.
Guests. And
we'll have special guests too once this pandemic thing clears up a little more.
To a couple people.
Yeah. So thanks for watching. See you soon. Garrett's Guitars, Sports in New Hampshire. What else should we tell them? YouTube, like, subscribe, notify, Instagram, Facebook. Stop by the store. See you later. Say goodnight, Gary.
Good night.